David DeGuzman inside the NBC4 Digital Center for the latest edition of the Digital Sports Roundtable. Folks, the week that we've circled on our calendar for weeks, months, however long since the schedule came out has finally arrived. Ohio State versus Oregon, and here to help me out to preview this epic matchup, top three matchup, sports director Joe Nugent, who will be in Oregon. In fact, by the time a lot of you see this, he'll actually already be in Eugene, Oregon. We had the press conferences Tuesday, and Joe, as they go into this, I'm kind of impressed by the mindset going in. They're acknowledging that this is a big game with big implications. However, they also realize they don't want to go and make this bigger than it is. So what's your impression as to how the Buckeyes are approaching this game, this battle of undefeated teams?
Yeah, I think they've really been looking forward to this game and this opportunity, while certainly, making sure that they gave Marshall the respect it deserved and giving Michigan State and Iowa, all those teams, the respect that they deserve. So it wasn't like they were looking ahead, but we all knew with the way that this schedule would ramp up to this game that this is what they've been working toward for the last 5 weeks. So I think they're excited that it's here. I think they're excited to face a team that has an elite passing attack. I mean, Oregon can absolutely sling it. But I also thought it was really interesting today. Ryan Day was asked about, traveling across the country. And so far, the Big Ten teams that have, crossed 2 time zones have not played well. Only one team has won so far this season. And, they're not making a bigger deal out of that than it is. Kind of like not making a bigger deal out of this game than what it is as well.
And not to open up a can of worms here and go off on a tangent, he really doesn't. It gave me the impression he didn't like Nebraska so much because he was comparing maybe I just took it the wrong way. He was comparing the flight to how long it takes to get to Nebraska. And it's like, oh, it's only a couple more hours in Nebraska. I'm just like, oh, comparing everything to Nebraska. And maybe I just read too much into it.
Yeah, I think the point was from a geography perspective. I think he was just saying like, hey, you go to Nebraska, you're basically halfway or a little more than halfway out to Oregon. I think that was kind of his point. Like, it's like we've gone on long road trips in the regular season. This isn't that much farther than what we did a couple of years ago.
It's not like how most people are traveling there, flight to another city just to get to
That's
Eugene,
true. They
right?
fly direct.
Yeah, they're flying direct. Obviously, one of the major storylines going into this is kind of this homecoming, if you will, for a guy who's very familiar with Oregon. Obviously, we're talking about offensive coordinator Chip Kelly, who served as a head coach there from I believe it was 2009 to 12, or I might be getting my dates wrong. That's what I think I remember. But he's been there. Obviously, he was talking about how much Austin Stadium is a very special place, how it's going to be very special for those players. Joe, how much do you think of an advantage it's going to be to have Chip Kelly's knowledge and experience going into this matchup, especially knowing how well Kelly has been orchestrating this offense going into this?
Yeah, I think that's where the advantage will come in terms of, building this offense and putting the players in position to be successful. In terms of like inside knowledge related to the stadium or the crowd noise or those sorts of things. I mean, I think, he can help Ohio State prepare throughout the week for what it's going to run into. We know that Michigan State, it was a road game, but the atmosphere and the excitement and the noise wasn't the same as what they're going to see this weekend at Oregon. So it was a little bit of a good preparation, I guess, for Ohio State to play in East Lansing. But yeah, I think Chip's biggest impact is going to be simply like calling this offense.
It's a little helpful that Michigan State was the common opponent, because you can kind of like at least set a standard for how Oregon did against Michigan State and how Ohio State did against Michigan State. The other storyline I kind of want to touch upon is Will Howard, and I feel like this is where experience comes in, and that's been a question going into a lot of these games is, okay, experience and these players and playing together, but sometimes you forget that Will Howard is a guy that is a fifth-year guy. He has plenty of big game experience playing for Kansas State. Obviously, this will be the biggest game he's had as a Buckeye. From what you've seen in the last 5 games going into this one, what gives you the impression that Will Howard is prepared for this stage, prepared for this kind of pressure, and it's going to be the toughest challenge that he'll face this season so far?
I thought the second half this past week against Iowa was very encouraging because the first half was not good. So he had to deal with some personal adversity, had the interception as well, and bounced back and was absolutely great in the second half. So I thought that was good. The game at Michigan State, it wasn't perfect. So that possibly could serve him well in terms of like, hey, the last time we were on the road, this is how we played. These are the areas where we need to be better. So I think previous experiences here with Ohio State will help him as he prepares for this game. And he also talked this week about how he's done better dealing with pressure. Oregon's defensive line, the best defensive line at Ohio State, we'll see to this point, and Will feels like he's improved his game in that area. So I think those are all good things in terms of where he is going into this game. But to your point about his experience at Kansas State, I mean, this is a guy that played Texas at Texas. They were down big last year against Texas and came back and forced overtime in that game. They lost by 3 points. He's played Oklahoma. He's played at AT&T Stadium in Dallas in the Big 12 championship and won that game. So the way I look at it is that, he hasn't been in the playoff per se, but if you compare it to the experience that Ohio State had last year at that position, I think that Buckeyes are in a better spot.
Yeah.
No offense to Kyle McCord.
Right.
Great drive against Notre Dame at the end of the year last year, but I think you can sense and you can tell that Will truly understands that there's ebbs and flows in these games. The emotions are naturally there, and you can't get too high, you can't get too low. I mean, he talked about it. Like, if you build a big lead, the game's not over.
Got to stay neutral.
Exactly. Yeah.
Look, I'm looking forward to it. I think this is really exciting for all the critics out there of Ohio State who's been talking about the schedule and how cupcake that's been, and how I think ESPN was like, they've still struggled against teams like Iowa. I'm just like, bro, you know what I mean? So I'm looking forward to just how Ohio State goes into it, that goes into this kind of environment. Do they kind of soak in that stage? Some players, how are they going to react to being in that kind of an environment and knowing that in the back of their minds that this is going to be big? I mean, how will they neutralize the situation, and just how, the Buckeyes will do against a really fierce opponent? I mean, everyone's been talking about, national championship or bust, and, being one of the top teams in the country and proving that, and they haven't really had the opponent to match up with them. And I feel like Oregon, with all the weapons that they have and the success they've been having on both offense and defense, it's going to be really, really interesting to see. Anything else you want to touch upon before we go?
I think Oregon has the best offense that Ohio State will see in the conference, and it'll be a great test.
Yeah, Ryan Day did say this is one that could determine who goes to Indianapolis. So some big implications here. Joe Nugent, looking forward to the game and looking forward to your coverage in Eugene, Oregon. Of course, you can watch that game on NBC4. Coverage actually starts at 7. Kickoff is at 7:30. And, of course, we will have all the post-game coverage for you on Big Ohio. But for now, that's Joe Nugent. I'm David DeGuzman. Enjoy.